Welcome back to Built for This. I'm your host, Bailey Kramer, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and someone who believes success is about more than just numbers. On this show, we talk about business, fitness, and the mindset it takes to build a life you're proud of. Because if you want to win in the long term, you've got to be built for this. Let's get into it. Today, I am joined by two powerhouse entrepreneurs who have built an impressive real estate portfolio while also becoming leading voices in the personal finance and real estate investing space. Cory Jacobson and Ryan Bevilacqua are the co-hosts of the top-ranked podcast, the Wealth Juice podcast, which, by the way, I have been a longtime listener of the podcast, and where they share real, no-fluff conversations with investors, entrepreneurs, and industry experts. And together, they've scaled a diverse portfolio of over 70 units, all while helping thousands of listeners take control of their financial future as well. So, Ryan and Cory, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, man. I don't know about powerhouse. That's a very nice way to say it, but thank you very much for having us on. We appreciate it, brother.
I appreciate you guys coming. And like I mentioned, and all in reality here, I've been a long time listener of your guys' show. I can't say what episode I started at. I did actually, in preparation of this, I went back and listened to your first two episodes just to kind of see.
I'm sorry you had to do that.
Because I kind of know your guys' flow and format now, but I'm like, how did this thing start and where did it kind of go? But to be honest, like, besides the audio quality improving, like, it was kind of like very similar to how it is now, as far as like you guys just going back and forth, just kind of chopping it up, talking, sharing. And so just out of curiosity, like, how do you guys even get the idea to start that podcast?
I think Ryan likes when I tell the Inception story, so I can jump in here. Okay, we take it back to, like, Ryan and I met in college. We were pretty good friends. And when we got into the corporate world, we were like working, actually happened to work at the same company. And we lived together. We came home from work. We were renting. We were like, I just don't, like, is this it? This is what we prepared for in college? Like, just working the 9 to 5? Like, and we had figured out that real estate, personal finance, and investing and entrepreneurship was one of the things that we really, really love to talk about. So we would talk about it amongst each other. And then I said, I think I'm going to buy a rental property. I ended up buying a 3-bed, 2-bath, living in 1 bedroom, renting out the other 2 bedrooms. Took one of the renters that was one of our good friends with me. I had 2 rooms filled, and I ended up living for free. And Rye bought his primary residence. Rye saw that I was like on this, real estate journey. I went and bought a duplex with the money I saved up because I was living for free. And he's like, let's do this together, man. Like, I see what you're doing. This is awesome. And we'd always been talking about it. So we decided in 2020, literally as COVID hit, like March, April 2020, well, we're going to talk about this together amongst ourselves. So we might as well broadcast just our organic stories, and just hopefully people latch on to the story of us. And we didn't want to preach down to anyone. We just wanted people to come along with the story. So April 2020, we launched it was called the Weekly Juice podcast, which transformed into the Wealth Juice podcast. And originally it was just us going back and forth, like saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're getting into real estate. And before you know it, a couple people took a shot on us. I remember Chad Carson was one of the first people to come on our show. And at the end of the show, he was like, you guys are pretty good at this. And I was like, wow, okay. If he says that, I've been listening to his podcast for a long time. Maybe it's true. Maybe we are decent at this. So we vowed to just post on social media every single day, to do 1 podcast a week, which has now turned into 2 podcasts a week, starting in 2025. So 5 years later, we have grown our portfolio, our network, and it's really just because we wanted to organically get in the rooms with people who are a little bit better than us. And that's how it's kind of started.
Very cool. Very cool. So when you guys started that, Cory, you mentioned you had a property or 2 around that time. But Ryan, did you have any units when you guys started the podcast?
I just had a primary residence that my wife and I bought. And it wasn't like an income producing asset by any means, but our goal was, to buy something that we could transition out of, but then keep as a rental, which is still the plan. Haven't gotten the big house yet, but that's on the horizon here in the next probably 18 months. So yeah, dude, it's, we were bare bones. I saw really the inception. Cory kind of mentioned it, but we had talked about this coming home from our 9 to 5s a lot, and kind of sitting around the couch, and we're like, dude, what are we doing? We had, I don't know if he kind of like went this deep into it, but we had someone come through and collect rent from us, and we handed a check over, and I'm like, this is a young guy. Like, he's not smarter than us. And like, how is he owning a property? It was just such an interesting thing for me. So that really hit me. And Cory and I had that kind of like ping pong back and forth on it a long time. And then as we separated ways, right, I went and bought my primary. He bought a primary, but he house hacked the primary. And then after that, I saw he put up his, the index finger on an Instagram post, and he's standing in front of a duplex. I'm like, holy crap, he did it. Dude did it. And I was busy getting married at the time and going through that life cycle. And I just circled back. I'm like, dude, let's meet. Let's talk about this. And then right after that is when, shortly after is when COVID happened. And he's like, dude, we need to start a podcast. We need to share our journey. I'm like, dude, what journey? Like, I'm not on this journey yet, dude. Like, I have a house. I bought something, but not the investing journey. And so we kind of like cracked heads on it. We're like, okay, how do we position this to make it relatable? The podcast we were listening to at the time was Bigger Pockets, and it was awesome. We still love it. We know a lot of people in that sphere, but the thing that we kind of felt like we were missing is like, how do we have like a handheld approach where we're following someone's journey that's kind of, where we are right now? So Cory pitched it to me. He's like, dude, we could just showcase where we're at and like the evolution of our journey. Who knows how far we'll get, but let's do it. So I was like, you know what, if you're in, I'm in, but my brain doesn't work on just like, let's try it. It's like, let's build out a system. Let's make it something, right? If we're going to put a lot of time, energy, and effort in, kind of like, let's go hard. And the number one thing that really, I think, kind of catapulted us to the next level was building an Instagram around it, because we had two drivers. It had like a marketing aspect where, we could showcase some of our episodes, some clips that we had going on, maybe any highlights or big name guests we got on, and then really interact with people that had questions and wanted to learn more or just wanted to talk. So it was a way to, a lot of podcasts is really hard unless I think Spotify has it where you can comment back and forth now. It's kind of like a YouTube platform, but really the DMs and commenting on other people's posts and really getting to know their business and what they're doing. Instagram was what took us to the next level on the relationship side and allowed us to get other people on the podcast that saw social proof. And they're like, whoa, this guy was on the show. Absolutely. If he trusts you, he's my buddy. I'll come on. And, we've just been kind of attacking it ever since, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously you kind of outlined kind of how the podcast was formed and grew. Now walk me through how your guys' real estate venture, separate and together, grew as the podcast also grew. As you guys were, like you mentioned, Chad Carson was one of your early on guests, right? Awesome. He has an awesome podcast, awesome real estate investor. But on the actual, because this is what happened to me as well, is I started the podcast pretty much similar time. I think March 2020. And it's funny, I just saw your guys' most recent episode with Rod Cleef. So my podcast started actually as a meetup, an online meetup. And I remember landing Rod Cleef as one of my guests on my meetup. And it was like, holy moly, I just made it to the top of the world. So I was doing all like this social media, learning all this stuff. But then obviously it has to translate on the real estate side too. So I'm curious for you guys, like, where did the real estate stuff come in, especially like together? I know you guys said you guys started out separate.
Yeah. So once that I kind of got the bug with the house hack, the 3-bed, 2-bath, living for free, I was able to, for the first time ever, save up some cash. And like, I was living paycheck to paycheck. And then, cutting that housing expense from $1,000 a month to zero, I was like, I had some breathing room. So I was saving up. And then I kind of got addicted to it. Like, okay, I have some cash coming in. What's the best way to have more cash coming in? And I say in air quotes passively, because we all know real estate's not really passive, but it's a lot more passive than working your 9-to-5 job. So I just on the market went to searching for, small multifamily in South Jersey, and I looked at probably 15 properties. I got into situations where I had no clue what I was doing. I just had a realtor just come show me properties. I started showing units to tenants. I don't know how much I've shared this on podcasts. I started showing units to tenants prior to closing on the property, and the owner of the property thought I was like trying to steal from him. So I had no clue what to do. I finally got this property, $125,000. It was a pretty beat up 2-bed, 1-bath at the bottom, 1-bed, 1-bath on top. I inherited tenants. I had no clue what you had to fix. There was leaks everywhere. It was raining inside my house. I just had no idea that you had to even fix up properties. I just thought, well, the numbers worked, because I was getting $2,000 a month in rent, and it was $125,000. It was over the 1% rule, almost the 2% rule. This is just going to work. It's going to cash flow for me. And, I realized quickly that you have to fix stuff. You have to manage tenants. You have to do all these things that no one really taught me. So I thought by sharing that story, that would motivate other people. And then Ryan and I came together, and he was like, okay, let's try to buy these properties together. 2 heads are better than one. Let's save up cash together. And that's what we did. Brute force, just the two of us, buying a single family, buying a duplex, buying another single family, having one of those duplexes burn literally to the ground in the process. And we just said, you know what? I think as we got to like 8 units, we said, all right, well, I think we're actually going to go farther by partnering with people that we meet through the podcast and through social media, and we blended our skill sets. So we started to get into larger projects where Ryan and I were able to become general partners on like a 7 unit, on an 18 unit, most recently a 10 unit. We have a 43 unit project in there. We're able to bring capital, investor relations, marketing, and some deal underwriting to the table where other operators, boots on the ground, had the contracting, the management, the finding of the deal. And it was just a kind of a great marriage. We ended up quote unquote dating people, online, different type of online dating for 2 years before we found the right partnerships. So that was the inception of it. It was Ryan and I, and I'll let him go into it, but like it was us saving up cash together for the first 8 units. And then we realized, okay, there's got to be a better way for us to do this. And instead of us with our full-time jobs trying to compete with the people who were doing this full-time, let's join forces instead. And that's really what happened.
Totally. Ryan, anything to add to that?
I think, well, there's 2 or 3 different ways we could approach this, but really like outside of building the portfolio and building the social media and building the podcasting, there's a business and a system that you have to put together in order to kind of riff back and forth. And what I mean by that is, Cory and I both had W-2 jobs at the same time. You're not only outsourcing partnerships, building relationships, but you have to hold each other accountable, stay consistent with what you currently built, and then, vet out other people to potentially bring into your business and partner with. And that's the hard part. Cory and I we can go into the partnership side of things, but Cory and I knew down pat, we were good to go and we trusted each other. But I think, how do I say this? When you live with someone, Cory and I lived together for a time, you understand them on a deeper level. It's just so interesting. It's having a friend, the friendship's way different. Yeah. Living, so you guys know this probably from college or even after that. But when you live with someone, you get to know their ins and outs and like how they, not only how they pay their bills, but are they regimented? Do they hold themselves accountable to whether it be working out or doing certain things? And so, basically my point here is Cory and I had to learn each other in the partnership too. And it's like, who was going to take on what role? And Cory was really good with books, meaning like keeping all our finances in track, always replying to certain emails and doing a lot of the things that my creative brain was like, dude, I don't really like doing that. It felt like a chore to me. So we had to figure out what was light to me and then what was light to Cory, then what was heavy to each of us. And just assign roles. And really we built out a massive outline to saying like, here's all the things we need to do on a daily and weekly basis. Who's going to handle what? And things would always dump into there that were new. And we're like, okay, who's going to handle this one? Who's going to handle that one? But once we had that outline in the backbone, like having it down in writing sounds super basic, but once you have that, it really allows you to then put accountability to it to say, okay, what's the frequency here? Who's going to handle it when this happens? And so we kind of just figured out, who is the visionary, who is the integrator, and we use those terms a little bit loosely, but we read the book. I think it's called Traction by Gino Wickman. But with that, it really gives you perception on, okay, who's going to fill this role of the business? Who's going to fill that role of the business? And then it allows you to divide and conquer. And so I think that was the biggest thing for Cory and I. It's like, let's not waste each other's time by continually talking about the same thing over and over. Like you handle that when that comes in, I'll handle this. And that's allowed us to kind of scale a little bit faster. And then when it's really, I don't know how to say this, like moving mountains, those type of conversations, it's like, okay, here's a new partnership potential. Here's a new sponsor potential. Here's a new thing that we're going to do. Then we need to really meet and kind of go over, the pros and cons of each and then make a final decision together. Because really it's hard to run a business. I know it sounds crazy, but it's hard to do it alone, but then it's hard to even do with a partner. There's so many roles you need to fill and seats or butts you need to put in seats as this thing grows and it scales. So I'm sure you have a bunch of questions off of that, but the most important thing for us was, how do we build out a roadmap for each other to hold each other accountable, not only to maintain what we currently have, but then scale and take on new opportunities as they come.
For sure. So as far as like assigning these roles and building out the roadmap, like for you guys, I'm curious, number one, how early on in the journey did you guys actually do that? And then in hindsight, and for other people who maybe have a buddy and they're like, hey, we should do this real estate thing. How early do you recommend they actually start planning these things out?
Sure. So honestly, right away. And I'd say that ours really started with the podcast, right? Because in the beginning it was Cory, myself, and then we had another gentleman who was producing the show, one of our friends. And so we had to say, okay, like when things happen, like who's replying to DMs, who's replying to comments, who's posting on this day, who is handling the production, who's getting the new guests, how are we replying and saying thank you? How are we tracking the conversations? A lot of different things. We used Asana, which is ASANA. It's just like I don't know how to really like explain it, but basically like it keeps you organized in a bunch of different fashions. And it's color coordinated. You can manage calendars. You can add new roles. It's kind of like a CRM, but not really.
Like a
It's really project management
software.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Project management software. So we use that. That's for the creative side. But then Cory and I branched off and started buying the real estate. So, and that was just he and I together. And it was really the first duplex that we had where we had to go through the full life cycle of, right, like deal analysis. Cory was the deal analysis guy. He was uncovering deals, looking in the market. I was more of the, how do I say, I guess building your team guy, right? So my mentor was heavily boots on the ground in Southern New Jersey, South Jersey, we call it, and right outside of Philly. And he had an entire team. And I trusted him because I knew him for 10 years on my W-2. And so we had a great relationship. He's like, oh, you're getting into the game. He owns a title company and has every person you could possibly need, from a handyman, a contractor, insurance agent, blah, blah, blah. So we tried using all his people to start, right? And I was like, all right, I'll bridge the gap of the relationships. Cory, you do the numbers. Then we get, we make an offer, we get something under contract. I think we made 5 offers and then got one under contract. So it was way fewer than we thought. Got a great deal on this duplex, and basically we got to use the whole team because it was local to where my mentor had his whole team. So we're going through this, and then we have to go, okay, we had one tenant in one of the units, which an inherited tenant, but it was a Section 8 tenant. We had no familiarity with Section 8. So we had to go through that whole, I don't know, like it was just like a whole ringamaroo, if you want to call it. But basically you go through that, and then we had to fill the other unit. And then it was like, okay, we now have to screen tenants. We have to go out and basically market the property. What do we want to put it for rent? We had to do anything you could possibly think of as you go through the beginning and early stages of building your first rental property, if you will, or building the business around your first rental property. And so then we go through and we're like, okay, I could tell this weighs on Cory a lot and he doesn't like doing this. And he could tell I don't like doing certain things. So that's how we would just break them out, really. And I think there's a lot of times that you're both going to go through it and you both hate it. You're like, well, we neither of us. Answering to tenants, put it that way, like tenant management, that was a pain in the butt for us because it's just heavy communication. Some of them act like they deserve everything in the world. And I know you are providing them housing, but you can get some landlord or tenants from hell, and then you can get the most amazing tenants in the world. And so it's like finding out how to manage them properly, setting office hours, making sure everything's noted in the lease, how they can pay. Are we allowing them to pay cash? Are they only paying via check or card? So all that being said, you have to go through these things, is my point. Cory and I went through this with training wheels because we had each other. It wasn't like he had to go through it alone or I had to go through it alone, but he already had the experience of going it through by himself one time through. And so for me, it was new. And I was like, okay, I'm going to kind of follow your lead here, dude. And then if you need me to lean in, let me know. Found out that, he likes when I write things, like I bring it back to the podcast and stuff, but like writing the podcast, the show notes, writing the title, writing the description. He's more of the numbers and the analytical guy and like looking at it from a different lens that way. And so we just kind of try to take that approach throughout everything that's new that comes to us. And hey, how can we use our strong suits and then not rely, like if it was for me for deal analysis, if I had to run 100 deals this week, I just wouldn't want to do it. I'd be like, dude, I can't, like, it's too much for me. It's a waste of my time. I'm going to be like, give me an AI software that I can plug and play, which we have a couple of them now, which that's what I'll do. And I'll spend the time really thinking through how we can craft this message and market it. So I'm giving you a lot there, but in the beginning, it was trial and error. You have to start right away. As soon as we framed our brain from, this is not a hobby, this is a business, whether we like it or not. It's our first thing that we're providing housing for someone and we're making money off of that, right? Potentially, like if you run your numbers right and you actually accrue some cash flow, but it is a business nonetheless. So we treated it that way, started the LLC, built the business bank accounts, and we really went through the motions. And that's what held us accountable to say, okay, we have to do this in the beginning. We don't want to be those landlords that were just kind of like slumming it, let things come as they go. You wouldn't make any money. And then you have the worst relationships with your tenants and you're providing crappy housing. So that's just not how we roll. And we wanted to run the ship the right way. And so that's the only way we knew how, is just put it on paper, assign out roles, and really take it serious as a business.
Yeah, for sure. So two things I want to highlight that you mentioned. The first one, because I've dealt with this a lot, and people often ask me this question and they're confused by it, but I like how you guys said it. So Ryan, you mentioned you had that mentor who had the title company, who had the other connections in the market. So very similar experience on my end where I go in, when I started out, I was in markets I'd never even been to before. And people are like, how are you going into these markets that you don't know anybody in? And what's made it easier, and the way you put it gave me some more clarity too, is like there's always one or maybe two people that you need at first that then know everybody else. If you find one, like for example, in my market, I have a phenomenal cleaner. She cleaned other Airbnbs. So automatically she also has great connections to handymen and other vendors that I'm going to need. And then I found a great contractor. So he doesn't do everything under the sun, but I like his standard. I think he has a very high standard. He does great work at a great price. So whenever I ask him for a referral, he always gives me somebody who's very similar to him because that's who he hangs around. So it kind of sounds similar to what you guys did with your mentor. You had a solid connection there who's able to also give you the other solid people that you need for your team there.
100%. It all flowed down from that. That was in the beginning, that was our core. And what it allowed us to do was, hey, really what we tell people is outside of a mentor, the person you need is an investor-friendly real estate agent, because that person has everyone that flows underneath them pretty much, or they have a connection, like the 6th degree of separation. They have a connection who has a connection. And then it's up to you to ask the right questions and make sure it's the right fit for your business. But in the beginning, you don't have any idea what you're doing. And you're like, is this, whatever answer they're giving me, is that the right answer? So that's why we lean back on the mentor, right? Or people that are currently investing in real estate. We preach, hey, when you're starting this journey, let everybody know that you are now a real estate investor, and get in the rooms with people that are doing deals, because you can ask questions and little nuanced things that you're not going to be able to find online that are specific to your deal. And so based on that, once you get that investor friendly agent and you surround yourself with a community of other people that are doing what you want to do, it would just allowed us to get more clarity on things. But then it's not going to be perfect, as you know, dude. Like you can have these 1 to 2 people on your team, and then the third person you have sucks. And then we've had plenty of bad handymen or bad contractors, or we got in a bad bid and we overpaid for something. And it's just part of the game. It allows you need to make these mistakes. And I say mistakes, they're just learning experiences, and going through it. It's a lot easier to go through this journey with a partner because the risk is split. And, for Cory and I, we did 50-50 cash down. And some other partners, they'll say, hey, one partner will go in with all the cash. The other one will run the business and say, hey, listen, your effort was giving the cash. My effort is going to be to run the whole ship. So you can get in a bunch of different ways. And I say, that's how kind of people can get in with low and no money down, if they have the background of how to manage and run a ship like this. But you can get in with a very lean team, and it builds over time. And then you'll build the all-stars and your core group that you take down deal after deal once you go through a few cycles and get to know who actually shows up when you need them, pretty much.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing you mentioned before was you guys kind of started with some smaller deals, single family, duplex, just some of the smaller stuff. And then you guys pivoted and went for larger stuff with partnering with more and other people. Curious to hear, like, what was the rationale? What was the decision making behind that decision between, hey, you guys can just do it, you two, and just kind of keep building as you guys are, or the way you guys went, which was going from bigger properties and partner with more people?
I think eventually, Bailey, when you're in this game long enough, you run out of money.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens, is that you run out of your own capital. You're saving up money. You're trying to grow. You're trying to expand. And in reality, we always talk about the power of one, because once we learned how to do 1 or 2 deals, that expanded our horizons and said, okay, is it really that much different to analyze and to go into a process of buying an 18 unit as it is to buying a duplex? I would say the analysis is a little bit different, but the buying process is not very different, like the actual process of going through it. So we decided, in order for us to grow the way that we wanted to grow, it wasn't by buying 100 duplexes in one market. It was by finding the people who were really, really good, who most importantly aligned with our mission, our values, and felt like they were an extension of us or family, that we were like, okay, this person gets it. That's the first and foremost, the trust. You build the trust first. That layer of trust then carries us forward. And we decided, okay, in order to grow, we had to get into bigger deals. Now, how were we going to do that? We were able to do that by putting our message out there authentically on display for other people to see. Then they were able to find us through the interwebs, through the algorithm, and say, okay, are these guys legit? Let's go listen to their podcast. Let's go learn more about them. Let's potentially maybe join their community and learn about who they really are. And then as you do that and people start to know, like, and trust you, you're able to then say, okay, I have these deals that come up. the power of taking them down with many people. So it started with running out of money,
Yep.
but then it was like, okay, we can actually grow a lot faster by finding the people who are really, really good, who are in the day to day, who actually need the capital. And then we can bring them the capital and partner on these deals. So that was the biggest thing. And the reason why we said, okay, let's go for bigger.
Yeah, and I think at some point, Bailey, too, people, the what do you want to call it, the lone wolf mentality and going at it alone. At some point, you're not going to be able to take out that many loans. Like you're pretty much capped at 10, and then your DTI becomes crazy, and so you have to scale and to get into more deals. You're going to have to level up and get other people in around you. So for us, we're like, let's just do this as early as we can, because we know we're going to have to hit this road bump or speed bump as soon down the line here. So what we really did, as kind of Cory mentioned, is just, okay, what type of deals do we think are going to flow into our portfolio? Or where do we see ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, where do we see the landscape of real estate, and how do we want to keep our portfolio diversified, but still strong in certain areas? So Cory and I still have the 50-50 portfolio, he and I, and we buy the small multis with that, and we love it. We have predictable cash flow, and we have a couple markets that we like, and we just the boring scales, man, and the boring works. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been using the same team. And then to really like bolster this in a different type of way, we've scaled into the large multifamily, which are, let's call it the 12 to 50 units. And then that's like kind of like the largest. We have one like kind of unicorn type deal where it's a big fund out in Arizona that we're working on too. But with that, I'm saying we've dabbled in a bunch of different things. And I think you need to try certain things to know what you're good at and know what you like. And then just kind of know how it'll fit into you as an investor. Because for us, we were like all in at one point. We were like, we're all in on Airbnb. We want to try it. I think this could be the future of our portfolios. 2021 was really sexy, right? Everyone's talking about the cash flow in it. We're like, let's do it. We're taking one down. So we took one down, and it was just Cory and I that took down the first one together. And we realized it was so much more work than we thought. It was really like being a front desk person or a concierge for a hotel. Like, oh my God, like your communication is basically just dealing with tenants every single day, managing the calendar, being at bay to the algorithms. That was one of the toughest things we ever experienced. We had a beautiful property, beautiful listing, and then you get one bad review, you get pushed back to like 5th, 6th page of Airbnb. If you're in a competitive market or not kind of saturated market, like where there's a lot of other Airbnbs, people are just going to book the other ones, right? And so we're so new at this, learning the game. I think that we got a little bit overwhelmed with what it was. And then at some point you think you run the numbers perfectly, but we came into situations where they upped the fee every time someone came into the gated community, and we had a pipe burst, and just crazy things that were like, oh, this is going to happen frequently based on the market that we're in. And it totally destroyed our numbers. So we offloaded that property, and I was like, listen, maybe we should let's talk about pivoting back to, the long-term buy and hold. And Cory got another Airbnb, which kills it, but it's down in Tampa, completely different market from the Poconos that we were in. So my point in him bringing this up is we've dabbled in a bunch of different strategies. We have the long-term buy and hold. And with the long-term buy and hold, we have the long-term leases. We also do the mid-term leases. We've also tried the short-term, right? And Airbnb, if you will, or the short-term rental. And I think they all have a place in your portfolio, but it's all based on your risk tolerance and the time you have to manage them. And so if you're still managing a W-2 job, it's very cumbersome to go through and run a bunch of Airbnbs. But if you're working remote from home and you basically don't have to be in front of the computer all day or whatever you have to do, maybe you have more time and you can do that. Or you're a very systematized person and an integrator, and you can weave in all the systems. There's like 4 or 5 programs you have to weave in. There's not like one thing that can run your ship on a short-term rental. So eventually we moved our short-term rental before we offloaded it to a property management company, and they did a great job with it. And so, but then there's still things that they do differently than you do. And so there's this whole thing, dude, and I'm preaching to the choir here. There's layers to the game, but my point in bringing this up is starting with one and starting with the typical cookie cutter long-term buy and hold, whether it's a single family or duplex, that's the way to get in the game. And honestly, even before that, it's house hacking, where you buy a duplex, live in one unit, rent out the other unit, or you buy a single family, you rent out all the rest of the rooms and you live in one. Because then you're getting into real estate with training wheels, and you're learning to become a landlord while you have people in your property. You can see it. It's basically in your backyard. And then you get comfortable, can invest out of state. And investing out of state's really the same thing as investing in state. And Cory and I's opinion, most of our portfolio together is an hour away. We don't go see the properties all the time. It's where it is. I guess it is a state away. But for us, we're like, if we can do this, we can invest anywhere, man. And all of our other deals are up in New England, our large multis, because we have a great team up there, and we know everything's down pat. They know the market. We now know the market. So You're only as good as your team is my point. And the only way you can get good at building a team is to become good yourself and going through the motions and being like, nope, this is not how you run it. This is how you run it. Here's what to look out for, the pitfalls. And it all goes back to our first deal, man. And it allows, you can't skip that step is my point.
For sure. So I guess what are your guys's, so you went from like, you guys managed everything. You guys did the Airbnb thing, which is like managing yourself on steroid because like you mentioned, you have issues every single time someone checks in and checks out, there's always some communication to now partnering with other people in different markets. So I'm curious, like, what is like the time commitment for you guys on these deals where you have partners that you trust in these other markets that you guys don't go to? Are they the ones that are all hands on, and how does that differ, I guess, from when you had someone, for example, manage the Airbnb for you?
Well, what we teach, Bailey, teach people how to buy their first or next rental property in the next 3 to 6 months, because we know how much that first property was able to springboard us.
Yeah.
And before I answer your question, I just want to walk through, like, we have 8 pillars, and I'll get back to your question because real estate doesn't become a system or a business without you going through like the navigation of this maze to allow yourself to put it there. Because at first it was like, just like, our time commitment was everything. We were managing our W-2 jobs, we were answering tenant calls. And when we got to that 5 units, that's when we handed mostly everything over to a property manager. But we've built out this first step to freedom formula. And it's basically mindset, casting your vision, like figuring out your why, the mindset there. Real estate investing strategy. What is the strategy that works for you? For us, we fell back on the long-term rentals, like I said, large multifamily, but I guess it's really like mid-size multifamily is what's like, it's not 100 unit plus, it's in that 10 to 50 range. So that mid-size multifamily is a strategy that worked for us. Deal analysis, what markets work? Deal analysis, market analysis, finding great deals. Next would be building your team. You need the agent, you need the contractor, the attorney, the accountant, lender, insurance agent, all these people building your team together. Property acquisition, how do you secure the financing? How do you close, negotiation, all of that. Property and tenant management, managing it, marketing your property, managing contractors. 2 other ones are business structure and organization, tax benefits, setting up your bank accounts, entity formation, your structure of your business. And the last one is like establishing a personal brand around what you do, regardless if you have 1 unit or you have 50 units. So you asked about, I bring all that because that's like the formula that we teach people, but you asked about our time commitment. In the beginning, it was crazy. Like I would be answering, I didn't even realize this. I was answering tenant calls at 9 p.m. until I established, okay, we have office hours. Our office hours are working hours. It's 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If you call us or text us outside of that range, we will get back to you the next business day, right? Creating this system so that we're not fixing toilets at 2 a.m. because that's what people are afraid of when they get into real estate. Now the time commitment is I wouldn't say very limited, but our biggest focus right now is on our coaching community and growing that. The real estate is kind of working in the background for us. And that's because the people that we partner with are the boots on the ground. They have the management, they have the contracting, and we are the investor relations, and we bring them the capital, and we get a relatively big portion of the deal. So the 43 unit, the 7 unit, the 18 unit, the 10 unit, we don't own just Ryan and I 50-50, as I mentioned. Now, I would rather own 20%, 30% of a large deal than 100% of no deal, right? So the thing is we decided that getting into these larger deals where we could play a piece of the pie. So I would say our time commitment to managing the properties that we currently own, plus trying to find new deals, are, I guess it would probably be 5 hours a week, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe an hour a day.
Yeah.
If that, of managing the current existing and trying to find new deals. And the deals that we find are brought to us through those partnerships. And we've interviewed almost 300 people on our podcast at this point. But it's not like we're partnering with all these people. We're partnering with the people that we've selected, that these are our people. And to get in that sphere, we've had to go through the 2 years of learning who they are and actually defining the roles that they present in the business. So long-winded way of answering your question is that, probably 5 hours a week of the management. But in the beginning, it was like any time of day something happened, it would stop in our tracks what we were doing. And what we realized is this is why people are afraid of real estate. This is why they don't get into it, because they think that the tenants are going to run the business for them. And when in reality, we put the systems into place. And when I say systems, it's like have a separate phone number, have a place so they can go and submit maintenance requests and pay rent and do all that. Rent Ready is amazing. We love Rent Ready. That was in the beginning, self-managing up to 10 units, using Rent Ready and having a place where the tenants can go and they can submit maintenance requests and have contractors come out to their property without you and Ryan, Cory and Ryan, having to call each other in the middle of our workday, say, oh shit, like we got to get a contractor out here. What can you call? Can you text the tenant? Can you schedule it? And it was like, okay, are these dollar per hour tasks worth our time? When in reality, the things that were worth our time, we're going and finding new deals,
Right.
or finding new business. So hopefully that answered your question about the time.
Yep.
For sure.
Piggybacking off this, I don't think it's fair to say, for people listening, they're like, oh man, they only spend 5 hours a week on their real estate portfolio. We spend pretty much every waking hour handling the social media aspect, the podcast aspect, and it all flows back to real estate. But also, I'll say the reason we spend so few time managing the properties now is because we have a property manager. So we're managing the property manager. We meet with them weekly, and we have a fixed meeting that we meet, like every single week. We're meeting on these properties. There's not a lot of major decisions that need to happen, and all of our other partners are meeting as well. So we're not self-managing anymore. But we've also built the system and the process. We've managed ourselves out of the business, which is the best part, because that's what you talk about all the time. In the beginning, you're like, how am I ever going to escape this 9 to 5? Or how am I ever going to escape managing my tenants? I don't understand this at all. Like, once you hire someone else to kind of do it for you, then you become managing them. But the only way to manage them effectively, my point is, and kind of Cory's point, we went through the whole journey and we built out the standard operating procedures, what we like, what we don't like, our buy box, all these things. And it takes a lot in the beginning. We were definitely working 90 hours a week in the beginning to figure out, okay, we have our W-2s, then we have our real estate. How does this all fit together? You quickly realize it's going to take a lot of rentals to get you to that financial independence number. That's why people start dabbling into the short-term rentals, and then they try the midterm rentals, and there's seasonality within this thing. But I think for people, the biggest thing, and for us, is what we've realized over this journey, like real estate is the foundation of our portfolio. It does make 90% of millionaires because there's so many different benefits within real estate, not including the tax benefits that we haven't really gone into too. But that's where a lot of people, like high earners, they invest in real estate to offset some of their taxes now too.
Yeah.
But having said all of this, there's the thing that Cory and I have come back to is, it's funny. It's like simple scales and like simple wins over the long term. And that I'd rather have 10 paid off properties, dude, that are just churning me cash flow on a monthly basis than not having to deal with all these different tenants, all these different properties. Like keeping a small but mighty portfolio is possible and doable. Really, you just have to focus on paying down that mortgage and getting yourself into a position where you have a very few amount of assets that are still appreciating over time if they're in a great market. And then it's easier to manage and you don't have to worry about all the headaches. I love that. So Cory and I have kind of gone back to that, outside of our big, large multifamily, like scaling aspect of the portfolio with other people, he and we're just focused on paying off our properties. And that's how you increase the cash flow, dude. We could have one, like my primary that I live in right now. The reason I'm keeping it, I can charge $4,000 a month for rent. My mortgage is like $1,900. And so a couple more years of paying this thing off and rigorously paying it down. When I move out of here, that's $4,000 a month. How many properties would it take me to get $4,000 a month? Now, a short-term rental, probably, if it's really churning and it's dialed, probably maybe one, maybe two, right? But for me, for long-term rentals, this would take a long time. At like $300 or $400 a month in cash flow, you're looking at, that's a long time, dude. That's 10, or a lot of properties. That's 10 properties. So my brain is like, let's just get these things paid down, manage fewer of them, and then we're off to the races.
For sure. So on that, as far as like paying your property down fast, I've heard a lot of different strategies on this. I have tried none of them. So I'm curious for you, what does that actually look like in terms of paying your properties down fast? Is that making an extra payment per month? Is that making an extra payment per year? Is that putting money aside in a separate bank account? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, sure. There's so many different ways you can tackle this thing. And it just, once again, I go back to the seasonality. Like you can say you're going to stick to something and do it every single month, but it just depends. Like for our business, it kind of goes in cycles, right? We'll have heavy months where a ton of cash is coming in, and then it'll dissipate and you're like off to like this steady, not a ton of cash coming in. So how much do you want to earmark to paying down the properties, and how important is it for you for this cash flow? Do you need more money now that you have it, like that lump sum, to go invest it back into the business and potentially make more money down the line? Or do you want to park it in the ground is the point. So I think you can start small. And this is just what we've done, is like that. It's basically the typical FIRE, stages of this in financial independence, retire early. People tell you to do this. It's like just making that one extra payment a year, right? You shave off so much in interest. Then it's another payment per year. And then you can just, every month you can focus on having a drip where you pay an extra, maybe not a full extra payment, but like 2, 3, 4, $500, continually paying down. And then you run the amortization schedule and you can see, wow, I just trimmed up X amount of years on my mortgage. There's amortization calculators online that you can do this. And it really helps you scale and figure out, okay, for the next year, I'm going to put $500 a month towards just principal. It'll
Right.
give you the amount of time you shave off from that mortgage, which is awesome. You can really plan for the future. And then within your business, you can plan out the cash flow. You're like, okay, here's the projected cash flow I could have coming in. But for Cory and I, we have a lot of this tied together where it's like we have the podcast, we have the Instagram, then we have the mentorship program, then we have our real estate. So it all ties in. So it's just how much capital do we want to have in the bank? How much do we want to have coming in from the cash flow? And you can just pull different levers as it kind of goes along. And then, people that own a primary residence, I would say at the very least, starting with that extra payment a year, you'll be shocked at how much it shaves off. Really, it depends on your interest rate too. So
Totally. I want to tell you guys my philosophy with how I've kind of structured my portfolio so far, and I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts, um, just kind of in general of it. So right now, I'm investing pretty much strictly for cash flow. Like people are like, why would you invest in that market? Like those kind of markets where people are like, dude, you're never gonna have your property appreciate. Although I don't really fully believe in that, and my properties have gone up in value a little bit, nothing crazy. But yeah, my goal right now is strictly um, cash flow. Like that's the number one and by far the only metric, not the only metric, but it's the highest priority metric that I care about right now. Until I hit a certain amount of money per month, do I then want to even think about kind of diversifying and going for more appreciation type plays? But I'm just trying to make my money work for me as fast as possible and compound it until I have a lot more coming in. I'm curious with you guys coaching a lot of people just starting out. What are your thoughts on that strategy? Is that something you recommend? Is that something you don't? Curious to hear the thoughts.
I think it depends completely, Bailey, on your goals.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have your goals set up pretty laid out for you of what you're looking to do. I would tend to, this is interesting that you're saying this, and not to disagree with you, but I would
Yeah.
tend to, now in the stages of our journey that we're at now, I think that the equity building and the long-term wealth building and the appreciation is actually significantly more important than the cash flow. We look at cash flow as playing defense. How long can I keep these properties for? How long can that $100, $200, $300, $400 a month allow me to keep these properties enough time for a 5 to 7 year cycle to turn so that I can actually exponentially grow my wealth? So I would say, to answer your question, when you're first starting out, cash flow is the metric that everyone looks at. It's the thing that's sexy. It's the thing that I'm going to escape my job. You have two categories here. Are you looking to escape the life that you're living? If you're looking to do that, I'm not sure that real estate is the quickest time horizon. It's the get rich definitely scheme, not the get rich quick scheme. So cash flow is the most important metric at face value to allow yourself to keep these properties for the long term, because the appreciation and loan pay down is really what is going to make you wealthy.
Yeah.
And that's what we've determined in our portfolio. So if you can get that $200, $300, $400 a month in cash flow in a long-term rental, which is what we strive for day one, that is, right? Because those $200, $300, $400 a month in cash flow properties that you get day one turn into $600, $700, $800, $900 a month in cash flow on years 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's all about, does it cash flow day one? They will grow.
Yeah.
And Rye mentioned, as you pay down these properties, the cash flow grows even more. So I think that it depends on where you're starting out. But if you buy a property that cash flows, and I mean it's $100 a month, $300 a month, $400, whatever it is, you learn the fundamentals of how this game is played. And then the longer you hold on to that property, the more the property is going to cash flow. And you learn how to then take the equity from certain properties and move it in and play real life Monopoly.
Yeah.
And as an example, the first property that I bought, Bailey, I thought I was going to hold on to it forever. Not the single family, but the duplex, the South Jersey duplex. I was like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this property forever. But let me give you my perspective. On over a 3-year time period, I bought it in 2020, sold it in 2023. Over a 3-year time period, I bought it for $125,000. It made me $7,500 over 3 years in cash flow. That's about $250 to $300 a month in cash flow.
Okay.
I sold the property for $220,000 3 years later. So I made $95,000 in appreciation in that property that I went and took that capital and didn't bring it back in my bank account. I rolled it into a new property that is in a higher appreciating market that cash flows even more. So my question to people is like, is the $7,500 what's worth it to you in that property? Or is the potential to make $100,000 over 3 years? Was that a rare scenario? Potentially. But even if it was over 5 years, the point is that I think that people need to get in to cash flowing assets and then let the appreciation and the loan pay down make them wealthy. Don't think about the cash flows making you wealthy. Think about the cash flows planting seeds. So hopefully that answered your question a
Yeah,
little bit.
that for sure. It makes tons of sense. And I think it is it's easy to be caught. I mean, and I'm talking to myself here too. Like it's easy to be caught up in the cash flow in the now. For me, I still want to get to a few more properties. Again, for my portfolio to where it's just cash flow, because like even though the appreciation, obviously you can't really predict it, and obviously like COVID and some things accelerated the past couple of years, so it's over the next 10 years, definitely you can say absolutely, you're going to get some good gain, especially if you're in the right market. So it's definitely it takes discipline for sure. That's saying that to myself too, to say, you know what, I'm going to forego the $10,000 of cash flow now for $200,000 potential appreciation later, especially if you're doing some forced appreciation. So it's definitely interesting, something that I think about a lot. So it's cool hearing your perspective on it.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. I think it's just different strokes for different folks. Like, are you if you're looking to escape your job and go into real estate full time, what I would tell people is that, okay, you can do that without a doubt. I do. We coach and we buy real estate full time. Rye's still working his 9 to 5, and that's part of the balance of our partnership. But here's the thing: you need an active income in the real estate game, unless you've been buying real estate for 15 years. And Ryan and I have been buying real estate for 7. Does our cash flow from our rental properties fully pay both of our lifestyles? No. It could, but we'd be living bare bones. So what is the active income that you produce as a real estate professional or real estate investor? Are you an agent? Are you burring properties, which is active because you're doing rehabs? Are you flipping? Are you wholesaling? What are you doing to bring in the active income? And then you park that money into the quote unquote passive income activities, which are the long-term rental properties. And eventually, instead of retiring at 65, you can take your 25 to 45, and that time horizon is much quicker. And you could absolutely retire through real estate rental properties in, I think, 10 to 15 years. But it's most likely not going to happen in 3. So how are you going to bring in active income and create a business around it so that you're not thinking, I'm going to buy 5 rental properties and I'm going to escape the job? Or you use real estate as your investment vehicle on the side of your 9 to 5 that you enjoy, and then you can still accelerate your time horizon and retire in an earlier time frame. But again, what I always say to people is that if you have the ability to create financial freedom through real estate, the likelihood that you're going to sit on a beach and retire once you hit that is very slim, because the muscle memory and the will and the drive that you need to have to be able to be the person that does that doesn't just stop once you hit that pinnacle. And Ryan and I talk about false summits all the time. You get to this mountain, you get to the top, and then all of a sudden you look up and there's another one in front of you. So how can you create a business and a life that you really, truly enjoy living and doing those things every day so that you're not worried about how quickly can I retire or how quickly can I get away from this? It's lean into it. That's what we kind of like to preach, and why we teach people how to buy their first or next rental property, because we know that if we had a mentor in the beginning, if we had somebody looking over our shoulder saying, guys, this is the move you should make, you should buy this property, or no, Bailey, you shouldn't buy this property, these are the reasons why, or how do I manage this tenant, or what happens when this happens? If we had that, we'd be significantly further along, and we would have saved probably $50, $100, $150,000, but back in our pocket. So we always say find the mentors. Sometimes you can find them for free, but other times you can pay to be in the right rooms. And Ryan and I have spent an unbelievable amount on coaching, some of which have worked, some of which hasn't, but we learned what exactly we want to do and what we want to provide to the people that are in our community. So that's kind of what it comes down to, in my opinion.
For sure. Yeah, very well said. And I'm with you too. I've spent probably roughly $75,000 on coaching on various things. So
somewhere to us, man. Yeah.
And some have been great and some have been terrible. So, but I'd say I also learned a lot from the terrible stuff. So, sometimes learning what not to do is good, although no one wants to pay all this money to somebody to learn what not to do, but it still helps in the long run.
100%, dude. I think just to touch on that, if you have the, I don't know how to say this, but you're going to be learning the same way going through the motions in real estate. You're investing in a property and you're hoping that you did all of the research and all of the analysis and everything the right way before you bought it, right? So you don't lose your shirt. It's the same thing like investing in yourself. The amount of money Corey and I have invested in ourselves and in our learning, it's just like going back to college, but in the real world. You know, you need someone in the biggest game of your life to help guide you. Now, I think there's different strokes for different folks. So certain programs, they suck. But for some people, they love them. And it just depends on your learning style. There's so many different things out there. But for us, I just peel this back all the way back to the beginning of the episode, having a mentor or someone to be the guiding light for us that had done what we were looking to do was the single most important thing that got us to the next level. We try to peel back all the layers and explain this to our students and people that are just inquisitive about real estate. And they're like, hey, how'd you guys get in? We had someone show us the way that did it before us. And that just gave us the confidence. And then another thing to keep you going and speaking to these programs that we invested in, right? Even if it didn't have all the jam-packed information, knowing I had to show up every week to that call was and show face on camera was like, did I do everything I was supposed to do the week before? It's that built-in accountability, which I love. And I think, you know, out of any program, regardless, as long as you're showing up and you know that's there and you put your money out there, that's going to motivate you to do something and get you to the next level. Sometimes you'll make 10x the return, sometimes you won't. And you'll be like, well, that's not for me. But as long as you can kind of learn and pivot that way, for Corey and I, like we got to a point where we got pretty stagnant at one point. We're like, dude, what do we do? What are we doing? We had someone come on the show like, do you invest? Do you guys have a coach? Like, nah. Like, you're lacking in this, and this. Like, do you have anyone helping you guide you there? We're like, no. He's like, how'd you get into real estate? We're like, okay. You know, like it was just one of those things where you can give. For us, we're living in the moment, like the emotions are there, but he could give a relationship advice or whatever type of advice for our lives because he wasn't living there. He's like, this is what you should be doing. It's logical. Go do it. So it was another thing like, okay. And now that we've done that and we're not afraid to do it, I think people think about this as like losing money and burning money. Are you rather burning money by not doing anything and just continually going to the 9 to 5 or doing something that whatever it is that you don't want to be doing and you're just wasting time, you can't get it back. So for us, we're like, let's just try this thing, dude. Let's invest a little bit of money. We put a ton in stocks, we put a ton in real estate. Let's invest in ourselves, dude. We're spending every week showing up for the podcast, showing up for social media. Like, why? Like, what else are we doing? So you know, you made me think about this again, and I'm so passionate about the coaching thing because I was so against it in the beginning, and you think everybody's out to get you and it's all fake and you're like, what is it? But there's people that are making real dough from this and build businesses out of it. And it really does work if you take it serious, but just know there's no magic pill, right? Like as all of us in this room can say, like it's not sign up for this program and you're going to be 100% there. There's going to be things you like. There's going to be things you don't like. Nothing's perfect, but then you go find the next thing. And so for us, that's when Corey and I are looking to get into anything new, we just go find someone that's done it at a really high clip, vet them out, and just be like, okay, show us the way. And then we're in that mindset. We're going on YouTube. We're listening to more podcasts. Like once you're immersed in the new thing, you're going to study no matter what on the side anyway. So it just helps for that built-in accountability. But I appreciate you sharing. We've definitely spent a high clip of dough, and it's good to know other people are in the same boat because it's really helped us get to the next level.
For sure. My eyes are on the clock right now. I know we're running tight. So I wanted to ask Ryan and Corey, again, appreciate you guys coming on. Where can listeners learn more about you guys, follow you, and just see what you guys have going on outside of this podcast?
The best place for us for interacting with us is Instagram. So at Wealth Juice Official on Instagram. That is where we answer all of our DMs. If you're interested in buying your first or next rental property and trying to scale, reach out to us there. That's where this is what we do. We help people get into the real estate game and mentor people to follow in the footsteps of ours, but not just us, other people in our community who are crushing it. And it's just really like a tight knit environment. So Instagram. And then if you're looking to listen to our podcast, the Wealth Juice podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, plus YouTube at Wealth Juice Official on YouTube. I think that's our handle there. Those are the 3 places, but interacting the most would be on Instagram. And that's where we house basically all the content we post every single day, and we're willing to chat.
Cool. And I'll leave all those down below so you guys can find us super easy. Ryan and Corey, thanks again for coming on, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Bailey.
Thanks for tuning in to Built for This. If this episode hits home, send it to a friend, post it on your story, or tag me. I'd love to hear what stuck with you. This show is all about building real wealth, real health, and a life that actually means something. I'll catch you in the next one, and remember, you're built for this.